Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Lift Tower. My name's Charles McGilvray, and as always, I'm joined by Jess Kebbell and Simon Stacey. We're a fans podcast by fans for fans of Northampton Saints. How are you both doing?
Good, thank you.
Good, thank you, mate.
Good. I think this is an interesting one for us because none of us made the journey northwards for pre-season, and the sort of availability of watching it wasn't ideal, was it? So, I mean, we've all seen the highlights and seen the followed the Twitter and all that sort of stuff, but it's hard to give any analysis of what happened, isn't it?
Yeah. Even the highlights thing. I think making the highlights video about 5 minutes long, also not massively helpful.
No,
but
I was a bit gutted because I was supposed to be going, but I had to change plans last minute. But yeah, you're right. Literally, I was following it on the Glasgow website, and that wasn't the best because it kept buffering. But yeah. It looked interesting, and I'm not going to lie. Their tries, I know it's not the normal squad, but some of the defence was a bit questionable. Let's just say, but it is pre-season. We're not going to be too judgmental yet. But some of our tries again were really good, and some of the boys look like they put a lot of muscle on again. Pearson looks strong. It's good to see him back.
Yeah, I think I get the sort of from what I've seen at Bedford and the highlights, etc. What I get the impression is we're in a very similar position to where we were last year, where the concerns for me were around defence and around Maul defence particularly as well, but that resolved itself in the season. And part of me thinks it takes such an emotional sort of effort to really put your body on the line at that level, and therefore, can they sort of tap into that for a friendly? Perhaps not. And therefore, maybe, in the bigger games, when maybe you sprinkle a bit more Stardust in there as well, everything connects better. They're more physical. If you're more physical, your defence gets easier. And sort of, that's my thoughts of where they might be currently. And at the moment, It's just getting miles on the legs so they can all get absolutely breathless and struggling. And so when the big games come round, they'll be the better place to compete.
Yeah, I'd love to know the stats around when teams perform best in Maul defence. I'd love to know if it's particular games when you're at particular times of matches maybe, or when you're facing certain opposition that, like you said, there's an emotional element to it as well. Whereas for example, if it's I don't know, 10 minutes into a regular season match and you're trying to do some more defence, you think actually I don't need to necessarily put my body on the line in the first 10 minutes versus perhaps I do in the last 10 minutes. So it's one of those things everything is hard to judge in friendlies, right? You usually see a lot of comments around that. I think I said this last week, that, and I can't remember if I said it before or after we were recording, but I'm pretty sure the past 2 years before this, we'd lost both of our pre-season friendlies, and it said nothing about how we finished the season. Finishing the season as Prem champs and then European finalists. And so I always feel like we've got to be careful not to read too much into it, because it's also that also wasn't the 15 or even the 23 that will be starting in the big matches in the regular season. It was very much half and half, or getting some people back in, testing some people still. And then we've got a game, obviously, I think you said last week, Charles, the PRC game that's coming up against Saris. We'll probably go quite strong in that, because it's the start of a proper, quote unquote, proper competition, but also it's an extra match that you can use. So I'm not really surprised that we didn't go whole hog for Glasgow necessarily. So it's different. And it's also, like I said, we're sitting here trying to make kind of comments on a match that we didn't really see, and the highlights really do only show you the tries that were scored and the big moments. They're not showing you the kind of nitty gritty over the 80 minutes. So yeah, it's a difficult one this week. Probably the first time where we've literally had a situation of pre-season friendly. No. We didn't win, but it probably doesn't necessarily mean much.
No, it's just one of them in it as well. Like Charles said, it's pre-season, so you got to think: are the boys going to put 100% into any tackle because they don't want to get injured? But then the lads that were playing, surely they want to stick their hand up, say, "Look, I'm ready to play in the first team." But it's like you say, it's pre-season. It doesn't matter. We didn't lose by much, did we? And it was end to end. It seemed a bit insane of a match. But like you said, none of us really got to see the proper flow of the game. because there was no coverage, not even on the radio. I literally scoured the whole web, Scottish radio, everything. Couldn't find anything. But I'm sure Graham and Lenny are allowed a holiday, so fair play to them. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I would have thought we'd have tested a few more of the lads in that match, though, to be fair. But we'll see how they do against Aries. I think they'll probably put that full strength out against them, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's limitations on how you play and when you can play. Like, none of the England players are allowed to play in, this against Aries, for example. And so you just have to bring them into the Prem and hope they're going to be ready, really, don't you? That's the biggest issue. Yeah. I mean, I also, the thing with friendlies as well is, getting fit and physical fit and getting used to the contact, all that sort of stuff. It's always about sharpening up your mind and your sort of reactions and stuff. So the best Maul defence is don't concede penalties around the halfway line, because then you're not going to be in the position to have to defend Mauls anyway. So, like, you give away silly in from the side or hands in the ruck or whatever it may be. All those come from not being quite mentally sharp, not as well as anything else, or being tired and therefore making errors because you're tired, sort of thing. So, yeah, it's not really surprising, and like you said, I don't think it's really going to be reflective of where we are in a few weeks' time against Exeter.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It feels weird, doesn't it, that we have another game, that we do have a game coming, but it still doesn't feel like the start of a season. And it's not me wanting to like crap on the PRC at all, because there have been some really like entertaining matches and performances that have come out of that. But yeah, you can't help but just feel that like we are still a couple of weeks away from the actual season starting, even if we're technically not.
Yeah, it's difficult as well because like it's another away game, so the season officially starts again away from home in the PRC. So it's like if that Aries game had been at home, you might have thought, well, that's the start of the season. But because it's away and it's probably not going to be on TV again, so I don't think I'll be going because I don't think I can take half a day off to get down there for it, etc. But so therefore, it's sort of feels a bit more. You're not really, seeing it or watching it and understanding what's happening so much.
No. Yeah. It'd be nice to actually get a home game for the start of the season, though, wouldn't it? Official Premiership.
Yeah,
it's the first time in 4 years, isn't it?
Yeah,
first time in 4 years.
Like that.
Madness, but yeah, we'll see how they get on. But we're optimistic. I'm liking the new signings. We've added a lot of weight for the pack at least. Just see how it goes when they actually play with the first team. But we'll see, because England have got the England boys this week as well, haven't they? So that's another half a week of not training with the main squad. I know that the Lions can't play. Can they not play for a few weeks?
Round 3.
Yeah, till round 3.
Yeah. So.
And then they'll probably have to ease them back in because they haven't played for, 8 weeks or so at that point, I guess. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, a few players you added weight in it. You mentioned him earlier. I think it's a massive season for Pearson.
Yeah.
He had a lot of injuries and everything last year, and realistically, if we're picking our first choice 15, has he got the 7 jersey now? Probably not. There's a certain chosen one who's probably usurped him slightly in there, and then you think of the form of Kemeny at the end of last season. It's if on form, Kemeny and Pollock are likely to be the 6 and 7 in the starting line, whereas I think we all agree when we signed Pearson, that was an incredible coup. We were all really excited about him, and he is a tremendous player. And I think he needs a big season this season to get sort of almost back on track. And that seems harsh to say that, but a bit, because I think he played for England A last year, didn't he? And got injured, so he was obviously there or thereabouts. But it just seems that for him to get the potential, hit the potential that we think he can get, he needs a good run of games of top performances, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. But at least he's going to get that, because obviously Pollock can't play till round 3. So hopefully he can stake his claim, because he is an absolute beast on the ball carrying. He breaks tackles, so many tackles. He's got a very strange running line, hasn't he? He just seems to knock people over. But yeah, I'd really like him. I just hope he gets an injury-free season and we can see his full potential this year. Because he was knocking on England's door, wasn't he, at one point? And then he's literally not even getting a sniff now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the issue he's got there is he's competing with some world-class talent in that England back row that are also all incredibly well-rounded players. You know, some not diminishing any of them, but some of them are potentially like 9 out of 10 in all the categories you'd want a player to be. Whereas he's like, you know, maybe 15 out of 10 on ball carrying, but he's maybe not, you know, quite reaching 8s or 7s in some other areas. And so therefore, it's sort of, do you want someone who's just got a super strength, or someone that can cover a number of positions, do a number of things, and a bit more well-rounded? I think if he adds, you know, a bit more breakdown expertise in terms of getting over the ball, then he's a complete 7. And he's obviously a good line-out operator as well. But I think comparing to other 7s he's competing with, that's probably where the area where he needs to get better at, and I'm sure the coach is on top of that, really.
Yeah.
Would you say he's not more of a 6 because of that factor that he's not like the jackler over the ball? I would say he's more of a 6, like you're more tackling, ball carrying flanker than more you're attacking and trying to get the ball back flanker.
Yeah,
but then, like you say, Kemeny has been exceptional. So good luck removing him.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, Kemeny has that super strength of being an unreal line-out operator, doesn't he?
Yeah.
His development around the park, his game around the park, just got better and better as the season went on last year. But without a doubt, from the get-go, he's probably our best line-out operator. And so, you know, he's got that super strength. And when it comes to decision making from a coach, you know, the line-out is such a fundamental set piece. Like, that gives him an edge always, I think. Pearson's a great line-out operator, but probably not quite. But he is probably more of a traditional 6. I agree.
Yeah.
He just probably needs that bit more destruction in his tackling game. You know, if you compare him to top 6s, say like Richard Hill back from way back when, he was an absolute assassin defensively, wasn't he? He cut players down, and you know, his reading of the game was unreal. You know, he sniffed danger out, and he was on top of it, and he's so aggressive defensively. I think if Pearson added that to his game, then he's great with the ball, great without it, and he's challenging Kemeny, I think, at that point. But 2 unreal players, isn't it? Like the standard and the depth is insane.
That's the thing, yeah. I don't know if do you remember him, Richard Hill, Jess? You might be a bit too young for that.
I know who he is, and that's as far as I get.
He's currently England's team manager, I think.
He is, yeah.
He's so old, he's gone into backroom office work.
No, but I know of him, a lot of him, that he's very highly rated. Yeah, no, I never saw, obviously, too young to have seen him, but
yeah, I just meant playing. That was all I meant.
But yeah, I'm definitely aware of.
He also played in that era where you could still have a bit of niggle and a bit of aggression and a bit of let's say, use the word violence, because you had a bit of it. And he was probably one of the most feared players by opposition, because he would sort of like Underhill, in the sense that he would catch a player off guard with the biggest shot you could imagine, and he'd win people left, right, and centre because he was just so efficient, so aggressive, and technically excellent. Like in that 2003 World Cup squad, probably I would say he's probably one of the last names of what people would remember when they're writing out a list of the 15. However, I reckon a coach would probably put him in the top 3 players that they'd pick because of what he brought to that side. And that's where Pearson needs to get to, you know.
Yeah, I think the difficulty he's got that he does have, and I'm sure he's probably aware of, is that like you've got to think of who he's got to kind of fight out at Saints in order to get the position at Saints, and then you start thinking about who he then has to fight out from an England perspective. Because at the moment, some of that talent, particularly in kind of the from 1 to 8 for England, is like extraordinarily high at the moment. Like there's some ridiculous talent that you'd have to beat out. So it's almost like there's kind of two rungs to get there. First, you've got to get yourself first choice at Saints and do that kind of consistently. It's consistent. Can't talk consistently, and then England is even then like a huge step up after that, isn't it? At the moment, like, and that's for anyone, not even just Pearson. Like you've got to think of the talent that England have got at 6, 7, and 8 at the moment is ridiculous.
Exactly.
Like, it's like one of those positions that you're like, oh, I wish I played something else, because to try and knock some of those people out, particularly I said in the front in like 1 to 8 is hard.
You think of the England lads? Sorry, go.
So there's also experience with that as well, because Like he's competing with world class talent, which he potentially can get to their level, but they've also got 50 caps on him.
Yeah,
Right, so like you're competing with Tom Curry, what etc.
exactly.
There's no
Yeah.
reason why Pearson isn't or can't get to Tom Curry's level of output, but he can't catch up with him experience wise.
No,
So
and Curry's obviously also bolstered that, like some of his performances on the tour were
yeah.
genuinely out of this world. So it's like, yeah, you've then got like the experience, but also, yeah, maybe he can get to the same level as Tom Curry, but then like you said, you've got the bona fide like person that's got 50 plus caps, but also some of the performances that Curry has been able to pull out when he's kind of put England shirts on, line shirt on, whatever it might be, have been ridiculous. And that's always going to put him in favour above literally anyone else. So this isn't like a unique to Pearson problem. There's so much talent in England in so many different, all of the positions essentially. But yeah, I'd say that that kind of back row, I mean, good luck, because they're so strong at the moment.
If you look at the ones that didn't get picked for the Lions from England, like Underhill, people like that, and he's competing just to get in ahead of him, and that is the back row is probably the best amount of players we've had in the back row for England for probably since the World Cup. That World Cup, because then that back row was solid. You imagine them now. Hill, back, and Delalio.
Yeah, that's the thing with it. Like that's the way the game's gone. And what I mean is, what I was saying earlier is like, if you think back to Hill, back to Delalio, they were all world class, unreal players, but they all had their super skills. Right? They weren't the rounded players that you're now seeing, like with Tom Curry, Ben Earl, etc. They are complete rugby players. And Pollock to some extent as well, like is on that echelon to be a complete rugby player. Back then, Hill was your defensive powerhouse hitting every ruck, absolute monster of a man. Delalio might be the best ball carrier that's ever played the game, and Neil Back was your link player. Got over the ball. He was pretty. Woodward didn't pick him for a while because he was small, and they hadn't quite got to that point of having those small sevens that linked play and got over the ball sort of stuff. But none of them were the rounded players that you're seeing today. Pearson, such a great opportunity for him, I think, because of he's probably nailed down the starting seven for us going into the season. Pollock not available. He's going to have a couple of games to say, right, I'm going to draw the line. I'm going to put two big performances and make it tough for the coaches. And if he keeps a run of games going in this side and the side goes well, who knows? You never know where because I think, like I said, we all think he's a great player. He just needs that opportunity and he needs to put it on the pitch, doesn't he?
He does indeed.
Yeah. The difficulty that he's got as well, though, is like, particularly with someone like Pollock, is that it's in a weird situation where Pollock has now got kind of more of the experience kind of in the big match moments and kind of playing for big teams. But it's also kind of, it's one of those where it's like you said, Pollock is, I'd argue, is probably already pretty much there in terms of a complete player and in terms of running with the ball, getting over the ball. It's ridiculous. But you've also, there's just kind of like an aura about him that means that you just pick him. And he somehow has to, I feel like Pearson somehow has to play like out of his skin and then also find a way to kind of push himself beyond that as well. Because with Pollock, you kind of got this thing of you put him on the pitch and you'll know he'll do something, or he'll G up the rest of the team to do something. And it's something that I don't think a huge amount of players are capable of doing. Like I could honestly think of like through like the past, I could maybe think of a handful of players that I've seen for Saints where I'm like, oh, that person comes on and like doesn't just play well themselves, but inspires and motivates everyone else because of that kind of aura around them. And so you've just kind of got that difficulty as well, that aspect of Pollock's play that kind of makes him makes it impossible not to pick him. And like you said, obviously we can't for the first few rounds. But it's a hurdle. But I'm sure he knows that. I'm sure he's probably well aware of that. It's probably great. It probably grates on him to think that, we always say that I always don't put much stock in. Oh, Henry's too young to do X, Y, Z. But it's also got a sting a little bit that it's like a 20-year-old that's kind of going above and beyond and kind of being able to do all of this as well. And yeah, that's
where the versatility comes in, though, isn't it? Because like, you could look at it as a straight shootout for that 7 jersey, but it's not really that.
No.
It's that you've got the whole back row and the team that whoever the three most, in terms of, you got to get the balance right as well of the three of them, but also the top three performing players will play in a combination. It may be Pollock plays at 8, and because you can bring because what Pollock isn't bringing is that physical ball carrying up the guts sort of heavy traffic that a Callum Chick and a Pearson and a Kemeny will bring, but. So therefore, you can have, if you have a Pollock, you might play at 8, and you might have Pearson at 7, or you might have Pearson at 6 and Pollock at 7 and Chick at 8, or it's a combination of the three, which gives the coaches so many options. But I think we would be wrong to say it's a direct shootout between the two, and it'd also be wrong to say that Pollock is better in all counts than Pearson. There are certain areas where Pearson has got the upper hand. So that's going to be. I just think it's his season. He's got to have a big one, and I back him to do so. I think.
Yeah, you say about Pollock as well. I do still think Douse is going to try and keep it. I know it's still going to be hard, but keep him grounded. Because remember, he said at the start, halfway through the season, "Oh, well, let's see how this lad goes," and he's sort of like just gone, "I can't really not pick him now, can I?" Because he's just gone like, "Woof." So yeah, was he 19 or 20? Is he 20 now?
20.
Yeah.
20.
So he's 20.
Yeah, 20,
so,
somewhere around there.
In rugby, that's still a child, isn't it? Really, and he's got so much talent already.
I would say, like in regular life, it's still pretty. It's still kind of a child.
Yeah, especially in a male. So he's still got to keep his feet on the ground and not read all his press, hasn't he? Because he doesn't want to get too big, because it could be the opposite and he could go down from it. But I can't see it. But
no, I feel like this has been happening for it's got to be going on a year at this point. Like some of the attention, and maybe slightly less, like maybe more from like the beginning of this year. It's like what's that, like 9 months or so, and I still don't think we've seen the effects that people seem to expect is coming with Henry. Doesn't mean it necessarily won't, but he feels very kind of self-assured. And I know we said that he's still like a child in terms of rugby years and real years, but I also feel that he's much more mature than I think people perhaps think or understand about him, because they see some of the clips of him where he's like being a bit silly or he's celebrating or whatever, and they go, "Oh, he's not really that mature." And then you listen to him in interviews. I'm like, actually, I'd probably argue he's probably one of the more mature kind of 20-year-olds that I've heard in interviews and doing press and stuff like that. It will be an interesting season, because it's going to be, like I said, like we're not going to be seeing, assuming as well, like take Lions out of it, assuming that the 7 that have been called up to the training camp are going to be fairly regular mainstays in England camps and squads, I would imagine. So certainly the 4 that went to the Lions, and then assuming that Ferbs and Dingers are going to have good seasons, and I don't see why they wouldn't, they're going to be up there as well. So we aren't going to see a lot of them if we're being realistic. So that's like 7 players. That's like 7 positions where there's a real good chance for people to put their name forward.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and talking of people putting their name forward, and we've talked about the back row balance and the chosen one, etc. But another player that stood out or did in the highlights did something incredibly well. Obviously, was George Hendy. That finish he did down the right wing when he barged about 4 people out the way and got over the line. I mean, having him back in the side, maybe he's probably done some pretty good physio as well to get himself fit, and. He could be a game changer. And when you think of the talent we've got on the wings, bringing him into the back 3 almost as a certain, it sort of makes very tricky, doesn't it? How that back 3 balances out through the year as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the new lads as well. For the life of me, I can't remember his name. The Fijian lad that's English, I can't think of his name.
Kakasau, yeah.
He looked very handy, and I watched the Bedford game. He looked very tasty in it. So he's quite short, but he's absolutely massive. The new lad from Coventry, was it Martin?
He was fast.
He's very fast.
He was fast, yeah.
That's what I mean. We're not even talking about them. We're just talking about the old. So there's quite a lot of depth this year. So we'll see how they compete in the Prem. But yeah,
I'm looking forward to those backward legs running up and down though. He's so fun to watch, because it's like he's so good, but it just is so fun to watch as well. Like just his style of play is still, I think, forever will always just be bizarre to me, like the way that he moves, but it so works in his favor, because it's just I think I said this before, like, I don't think he knows where he's going, and so the person that's trying to mark him definitely doesn't know where he's going, and it's such a because I think he came on, didn't he, and talked to us about was it pigeon feet,
Pigeon
legs,
toes, yeah.
pigeon toes. I was like, I know it's a part of the body,
Mm-hmm.
and he talked about that and how we had to kind of work on that, and you wouldn't necessarily think it, but I think it's become such a USP of his game because it makes his running style really hard to predict. And then he's also just he's so lethal as well. I think he's so lethal when he has the ball in his hand, and he's quick and
he's so
smart.
powerful.
And he throws himself into defense as well. Like, it doesn't always work out, but there's also been times where it has really worked out. And it's that'd be interesting because then obviously you've also got Ollie, who had a long injury layoff as well and played in the final, didn't he? And you can tell he wasn't quite, not that he wasn't quite fit, but perhaps was a bit unsure about the level that he could maybe reach, because obviously it's a big injury, right? And it's like, well, you're going to start playing again, and oh, by the way, it's a European final. Have fun. Good luck. So it'd be interesting to see kind of what he's like.
Yeah, it's interesting that he was acknowledged by England as not considered for call up to the training squad. So there's either he's injured himself again, or they've just deemed him not ready for the England mix, or whatever. Because you've seen pictures of him in training and what have you. So yeah, interesting what will come of him, I suppose. Because when you think of that back three going into the Sarries game on Friday, Furbank won't be available. So, Ram and Hendy are almost guaranteed starters, probably Ram at fullback. And then it's sort of a choice between, Martin, Kakasel, Toldaro. And that's really exciting, isn't it? That, someone like one of those youngsters is going to get an opportunity at that level. I can't see who else who would be.
Is it like, I'm trying to think, because the thing is, I don't know enough about sort of the younger players and their injuries. I mean, do we still is Glister still around as a possibility? They might throw him in.
Yeah, he hasn't played in any of the pre-season though. I
think so I wonder if there's perhaps an injury.
I saw him on touchline at Bedford game, so I guess he's not competing.
Yeah, possibly not competing at the minute. Yeah, it may even be the thing with Ollie. It might. I mean, it may simply just be not considered for selection because maybe he literally just hasn't played any. But yeah, I guess we'll know on if he doesn't. I would say that if he's not involved against Saracens in any way, even if just on the bench, then you have to assume that he is not quite ready.
Yeah, taking their time. Yeah.
It's probably done him a favour having the summer off, isn't it? Same with Ferbs, because they had really bad injuries. It's awful that happened to Ferbs. He comes back and then he gets that knee, but they just think, do they need a summer off? Because some of them players, they've played every month for that whole year last year, near enough. It's an insane amount of rugby, and the size of these boys now. They are like, I won't swear, brick poop houses, and you run into that at speed. It takes a toll on your body, and these boys come back with strap-in injections. So to have 6 to 8 weeks off with no rugby, it's probably exactly what those two needed.
I think I agree. I mean, and also, but then you've also got to be careful of, they've had that breakaway, and I think Dawson said in one of those interviews it was really good for Ollie because he's just had his child and he's fully into rugby, etc. So to have a bit of time off is tremendous for him as a person, to get that time, etc. But then because they've had the time off, you don't want to rush them back in and create injuries by going, trying to get them up to speed too fast. So, yeah, I imagine they'll treat him like the classic Ferrari in the garage. They'll make sure they get good service before they start driving him around,
Yeah.
And they won't ask him to go full belt too soon. But it's interesting. It's just that 7 players not being available for, say, the Friday game just opens up, so many interesting choices to see where the coaches see players, because we're going to see essentially that, I'm guessing Hendy and Ram start too, but then, there is going to be probably Martin, Kakasel and Toldaro playing fine for that probably 11 jersey. And whoever gets it is probably, that shows you the pecking order a little bit. Who is the next cab off the rank when you've got no Furbank, Freeman, Slightholme, Ram and Hendy, etc. So I think that'd be pretty interesting to see who gets called in there, because I bet they go as strong as they can actually go with the players they've got available, and maybe Hutchinson and Litchfield, I'm guessing midfield, with Tane covering.
Yeah.
He looked good as well in pre-season, that boy. He looks like Yeah, he looked good. He's put on some. They've all put on a lot of muscle. It looks like they've been in the
Yeah,
gym.
Well, it's
yeah.
one of those where it's like we've sort of talked about before. We obviously mentioned like that we lost a lot of weight in like the forward pack, which is true, but like I feel like there was also some people that really did need to be bulking up in the backs as well. Not like massive, like some of them are really fast, and you want to make sure they can maintain those speed levels whilst putting on. But yeah, there definitely seemed to be some areas where we needed to do some bulking up. So they've obviously paid attention to that, which is good. But yeah, it's just a strange one of, like they said, because I couldn't watch the first friendly and then nobody could watch the second friendly. I don't think I've ever had a situation where I'm like, I really have no idea what's happening or what's coming.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There's not even a tiny little sliver of anything to grab onto to try and kind of figure it out. But I think we'll get much more of an idea after the Saris game. Because like I said, I think well, I don't think they've really got a choice. Like you can't throw them into, because like you said, assuming that those, not all of the 7, because some of them obviously like Colsey and things are obviously going to come back and play after the camp. But like when you're definitely missing 4 of your top players, you're going to have to go with some people that aren't necessarily first choice, right? There might be typical bench choices, and some people are going to have to come onto the bench that wouldn't normally. And so just chucking them into a Prem game for the first run out, I just don't think that's going to be workable. So yeah, I think they really should be going as strong as they can against Saris, because once it comes to Exeter, and we've got no idea what Exeter are going to be like this season, and so everything is an unknown, right? They've got a new coaching setup and everything going on, so who knows what level they're going to be at. So you've got to go in expecting that they're going to be good. So
there's one notable player we haven't mentioned though is Charles's favourite, Mr. Prowse. I think he played 8. Did he play 80 in both, or he went off at the end of Bedford, didn't he?
Yeah, perhaps. I can't remember.
Yeah,
he might have gone off and come back on actually, but I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going down that model of a big, proper tight head lock. And when JJ is not around, when he gets up and running, it might be see him on Friday. That would be really exciting. But when he's not available, Ed Price might have a real shot at playing quite a lot of rugby, because he is that big bloke who adds a lot of weight at scrum time, a lot of weight through the middle of the pitch physically, defensively, and mauls, etc. I think there's a potential for him to really, the lock position now, bearing in mind where we were a few years back, is really strong.
Yeah.
That when you add Van der Merch in, and then you've got Coles potentially as your top 2, but then you go Lockett, Munger, Prowse, and some really good youngsters coming through in Ainsworth, Cave, and Lawrence, etc. And Appleby, they think a lot of. There's a lot of talent there. It's a really strong position, and if someone's not performing or away, there really is that person to step into.
I was going to say, nice to see Bellews sort of just I don't know how you say it. I'm thinking like Jess last week saying Tony Bellews.
I'm just calling him Tony Bellews for the whole
but yeah, he looks like he's just slotted straight into the way we play as well. I know we haven't seen much because of the Bedford game, but he looks like he's perfect for that role of quick, fast passing. That Luke pass, I can't remember who scored the try at Bedford, where he mispassed someone out to the right wing.
It was Peter.
He looks pretty tasty. He missed a few kicks in Scotland, but I don't know if it was windy up there or not.
Yeah, and they were from out wide, I think.
Yeah,
the only thing I would say is, in the Bedford game at least, he put very flat to the line, and he put up quite a few passes across, missed passes across the front of the defence. That against Bedford and against maybe Glasgow and friendly, maybe that's fine, but you come up against Premiership level defences, and a few of them might get picked out.
Yeah.
We've had it a number of times. It wouldn't be, there's plenty of players in the squad who've given away a number of interceptions, and that's the way we play, and that's the way he seems to play really well as well. But it's just that risk reward, isn't it? And my only concern with Bellews is, because I think you're right, he fits perfectly in. He's a proper good replacement for Finn Smith. Is we seem to be at this point in time 100% relying on him. If he steps into the Premiership and for whatever reason it's not working, which I don't think it will, I think he's a really good signing. we're struggling, or if he takes a knock, or an opposing player thinks the way to beat Saints is to absolutely smash their new fly half. We haven't got really anyone to step into the void, other than Furbank, who said his own issues injury wise. We haven't had a good run of games from him yet. I know I've said it before, but that's my only concern is that it should work, and we're hopefully, obviously, we want it to work. It's just we're really reliant on that one player at the moment. Whereas in all other positions, we've got depth for days. 10, it's like, you can't cope with a couple of injuries there.
No, it's one of them though, isn't it? 10 is like the talisman, so you can't have 3 top quality 10s. It's just not going to happen because one will want to be playing. So he's going to push Smith more than the last few seasons, but it does make you wonder. Then I'm not just the coach who's made a choice. Why they got rid of GMC, because he was looking okay and he would have been a good backup, wouldn't he? So, but yeah, it's what it is.
I guess there's an element of what we've got within the squad, but also an element of I think they had to move players around to make money work. Big South Africans coming in.
But it's funny, it's like you think about 10s, right? And maybe there's kind of a lack of them kicking about, literally. But I feel like the opposite with 9. I'm so excited about what's going to happen at 9 this season. Just because we've got like 4 of them, and they all seem to be really, really good. And you've got to think that Mitchell's not going to be around much, right? Because at this point, he's got to be just a shoe-in. He's got to continue to be a shoe-in for England at 9, right? Like, I'd be absolutely stunned if he wasn't. And then you've got James, but then we've got 2 really like ridiculously exciting youngsters with McParland and Wyman. Like, and I'd even, I mean, obviously you're certainly going to pick James in most of the matches, I guess, to start, and certainly in the real high pressure ones. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they can do this season, because you've got to figure. I mean, Wyman towards the back end of last season looked good, really, really good. And then before McParland obviously had the shoulder injury, I believe it was, he was on a really, really good trajectory also. And like I said, both of them are like regularly selected for England in the kind of under categories, those levels. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting kind of what happens there, and if they're going to get like starting time. Are they always going to go for the experience of James, or are they going to figure that actually we can throw one of these 2 in, because they've got their own experience, just obviously in a different way, I suppose, to James, and that not as much at kind of the top flight of domestic, but certainly on some international stages they've got good experience. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what that brings. But it's strange, isn't it? Like, we've got like two sort of 2 10s essentially that we're realistically going to pick between, and that we've got 4 9s to try and juggle.
I think McParland, to be honest with you, I think he's on the trajectory. I would not be surprised come the start of the season if McParland is slightly favoured with James off the bench. I really rate James. I'm not criticising him. He's a class player, class bloke, great player, great team player, great left foot. I just think that, like the way in which the delivery that McParland has and the speed of play that he brings, and he's improving his sniping game. And when he took, I think he had a break in that highlight video, and you saw a bit of toe from him as well. So I would not be surprised if he ends up playing more games than any other 9 this season for us.
Yeah,
that's my bold prediction. Is McParland plays most games for us at 9 this season. The other one I just wanted to chuck into the back 3. Actually, I forgot to say, who I thought was incredible against Bedford, and looking at him looks like a phenomenal talent in the making, is Pater. He, physically is impressive. He's got to be pushing, 6 foot plus, broad, fast, moved really well, moved the ball through his hands well. Not sure he's a 10. I'm not, I think he's got a lot of development in that area. So when he went to 10, I'm not sure putting him there is the right thing. But as a fullback, took the high ball well, really looked talented, finished a couple of tries really well. We just seem to be producing these 15s, and that's the issue. Is we've got a whole host of them, got a stable full of 15s, but he looks a prospect in the making as well.
Yeah, it's another difficult position, isn't it? Because you've got to assume, like, I mean, it's Furbank's shirt, right? Like, it just is, even with him out, and then you've got to figure that your second choice is still probably Ram, assuming he's not having to cover a wing position, right? Because Ram is just, I love watching Ram play. Because, like I said, it literally is like watching a gymnast, like legitimately. And I know people have said that before, and I'm like, but it's genuine. Like some of that stuff, some of the things he can do, is absolutely ridiculous. And so yeah, it's there's just got so much exciting young talent. But the problem that we have is that, and I say problem, it's a great problem to have, is that all of the kind of world class talent that we have in the kind of first team are all young. It's not like you've got a lot of players that are kind of pushing towards the end of the career, and some of these players only have to wait maybe a season or two before they can start pushing. The reality is that some of your people, like your Finn, your Freeman, like your Slightholme, like Hendy, all of those, like they've still got a long time. Fingers crossed, obviously, touch wood, hopefully nothing ever happens, but they've got like a long time to go. And so it's one of those that, I mean, are we going to be able to keep hold of all of this young talent? No, that's just not realistic. That never happens. No team ever does that. But yeah, it's interesting how that's gonna work, because it's very different to where we were 10 years ago, when we were still picking the same players over and over again after we won the title that weren't playing very well, and we're getting towards an age, and it was like, well, who do we have once they all leave and retire? Whereas we have like the kind of opposite situation now, that all of this talent that is going to start these games and would regularly start the games in the top in the first 15, like so many of them are really young, and so it's hard to think of where, like, all of these players that we've mentioned that played for Bedford or played against Glasgow and are really, really good talents, like how many of them are going to be able to realistically push on, just because, unless we have like a mass exodus of people leaving, which I pray we don't, and I don't really see happening. It's hard to think of how long these young guys are willing to wait around for a chance, because some of them it isn't going to come, and it isn't even anything that they've done necessarily. It's just the crazy amount of talent we have.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say though is, if they're good enough, they'll usurp the player in the shirt. Right, so we've got some world class players, but it doesn't mean they can't be better players. Right?
Oh, definitely not. No.
So like like Pearson's a really good example. Pearson's absolute international standard top 7. You would think Pollock going to get an opportunity, but he's that good a player that he's forced the opportunity, got the opportunity, took it. There's no reason. The same thing could happen to any of the established players. Your shirt's not yours. You're only borrowing it, and at some point, a youngster's going to come along and take it off you, and that's the way it's supposed to be as well.
Definitely.
So you must think.
But you got to think. I can't ever think though. The idea that someone might come along and be better than like Tommy Freeman, for example, I think is literally the best winger in the world right now, is terrifying. If there's someone better than him, then
it's good though.
Keep hold.
Good.
There's some players who might hold on to their jerseys as long as they want them, but Tommy might be one of them.
The thing is, you did say that you were comparing Pollock. Pollock's not really on the level you should be comparing. He's just been insane from about 15, hasn't he? I was going to say, I know what you mean about young talent.
He's such an outlier, isn't he? In terms of what that trajectory has been.
We've seen him because we've watched like the youth games and that. You've seen the lads always had talent, but like you said, there's so much. But then unfortunately, we lost one this year, didn't we? Ruben Logan. Like he was tipped to be like an England flanker. Now he's gone to play for Scotland. Now he's off to Sale. So it's just sometimes it just doesn't work your way, and unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he sort of got the one that got away sort of vibe, because you look at him in pre-season as well and he's stacked, right? So we obviously went down the route of, and obviously I think there was certain things that might have changed that might have meant he stayed. We had Mapu, who seemed to be favoured by the coaches. There seems to be a deal done where he's gone the other way to JJ, isn't he? He's gone to
That's what
to
I was about
Paris.
to say that, yeah.
So maybe there might have been an opportunity if they'd have known that prior to the deals and everything, but you don't know. But he looks stacked. I don't think he's going to play a lot for Sale this year. I think he'll play in one of the championship clubs. But when you see the way he's dominated at under 20s level, the physical size of him, the pace of him, I just think
exactly. It's like his dad, isn't he? His dad was a massive, strong running winger, though. He's sort of like got that bit in the back row, so it's a shame, but it is what it is. It happens. We get talent like Mitchell. Mitchell came from Sale, didn't he? He obviously wasn't working at Sale, and we managed to look what he is now. He's one of the best, if not in Europe, the scrum halves. Well, obviously, the Frenchman, but
you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, I'd still argue he's like top 3.
Yeah.
So, which is such a hard. Like, you think about that, it's such a hard thing to do. Like to be but you've got to think that we've actually got people at Saints, and I'd argue that like definitively Mitch and definitely Tommy, who are literally in like the top 5, top 3 probably in their position in the world, and they just come from. I mean, obviously Mitch didn't, but like they just come from here. It's wild.
We developed him.
Yeah, both of them we picked up youngsters.
Youngsters.
They're not necessarily local, but they picked up into the academy. But
yeah,
Tommy was from the enemy, wasn't he? They didn't want him, so you imagine them now.
I still feel like, I wouldn't necessarily say like I wouldn't call them local, but I'd say like if they came through our academy and we've had them since like junior level, I'd certainly say you can call it homegrown talent at that point, definitely, right? So
100% homegrown.
Yeah, so to kind of.
To be fair, Logan came through at Worcester as well, didn't he? Just the only reason we had him was because they went bust. So
it just sounds ridiculous. You know, like I thought it loads of times when I was watching the Lions. Like I'm watching basically Tommy Freeman like rip it up and just like he's from here. This like small town, literally like smack bang in the middle of a country that's just been. It's just it's crazy to me. But yeah, I reckon we've got, you know, some of the best in England, and then in some positions literally some of the best in the world. But that's why I'm hoping that this season is a bit, at least in the Prem, is a bit better than last year, because I feel like those results didn't do justice to how well we can play and the players that we have and how well we played in Europe. But yeah, I guess the game against Sarries is going to be our first chance to kind of hopefully get an idea of where everyone's at as well. Like I said, there's some people that we know are coming back from injury, some people where there's question marks, some people where we know literally nothing at all. And so hopefully on Friday, Thursday, I guess, when they announce the squad, we'll have a bit more of an answer of where people are and who they are thinking of as kind of their first choice selections whilst people are missing.
The thing was, we mentioned it, Charles mentioned it, I think end of last year, that 8th, if you look at the stats, 8th looks absolutely terrible. But then 1 win or draw, and we were in the top 4 or something.
Yeah, it was so close.
It's
a really, to be fair, like I don't think we say it enough about. And this is not me wanting to give like flowers to any other teams or anything, but like, God, it's such a competitive, good league. Like it's what it's meant to be, right? Like, you think on its own 8th, and I try not to think about 9th and 10th too much because I kind of feel bad for, but obviously it really was. There really were 8 teams and 2 teams that just did not compete really realistically. But yeah, the top 8, God, there was just, except maybe Bath, I guess, I felt like there was really nothing between anyone for so much of it. Like it was crazy, and we just weren't quite consistent enough to make it in our favour. But I feel like maybe two games where, like the game against Leicester at home and some of the others, like if we had just mentally switched on a bit better, it would have been a different story. But I also feel that like where we were at the end of that season, could we have competed in a semi-final and a final alongside a European one? I don't know.
We were stretched thin, weren't we?
We were really more than I've ever experienced watching the club. Like been an on and off season ticket holder since I was literally in like single figures. Like I can't even remember. At least like I can't even remember that far back anyway. But at least since I've been consistently going since I was 21, it's like 90. I can't remember a time where it's been quite that crazy as you get towards the end of a season of who we cannot use.
Not across the board either. You know, we've had scenarios where we've had like no tighted props or something, but never that many injuries across the pitch. Talking of injuries though, it seems like really bad news and dents to our hopes as well. It looks like Langdon's had an operation. Yes. And therefore we're expecting he's going to be out for a while as well. So,
but then also hooker is one of those positions that like I think Langdon is easily first choice, but there are some good people knocking around. Like you got to think Robbie Smith coming back is actually ended up being perfect timing considering that has happened to Curtis. We've got, I mean, I think Henry Walker is one of those that like when he has come on and he's performed quite well for us. Like hasn't necessarily played enough to like really put a name forward, but yeah, it's not ideal. So certainly not ideal.
That's the thing. I think Walker, Wright, who's got a huge prospect, and Robbie Smith, all really, really good Premiership players. They're all really good players, and you've got great depth in that position. But it feels like a position where it's the biggest drop off because of how good Langdon is.
Yeah,
it's not a knock against those three. It's just Langdon is exceptional, and it seems like not having him is a big dent in the side.
Yeah,
I think that's why it's important though that we. Well, obviously we won't this week with like Coles, but I think it's like super important that if we don't have Langdon, we do have Coles, just because of his line-out presence and his kind of the way he runs those line-outs can be like a really beneficial, like experienced person to kind of keep it calm, keep it cool, keep it collected, you know, try and get it going as well as possible, because he was just out of this world towards the end of last season. But difficult. It's a difficult situation with Langdon, but yeah, hopefully it's. I mean, it's hard to say because you think surgery, you automatically assume that equals something major. I don't know enough about the injury as to whether it is or isn't. Like that's the reality of it. Some people have surgery and come back really quickly, and some people definitely don't. So.
No, the worry is this. I think this league will be more competitive this year as well, because obviously Newcastle, now they've got the Red Bull tag. They've recruited. I don't know.
At least,
I've not looked, but the amount of players they've bought the last few weeks, they're going to be more competitive. They're not a guaranteed 4 or 5 pointer now, are they?
No.
At least nobody will talk about our logo anymore, because it's.
They should have just gone with Red Bull. They should have just had the Red Bull logo. Like, why did they try to put a rugby ball on it? Just do the Red Bull logo.
I'm aware that it sounds like we're like throwing stones within a glass house, but.
No. Don't bring up the logo.
I'm just happy for them, right? Because.
Yeah.
Like, it was genuinely horrendous watching. I mean, that's what 2-3 seasons in a row where you just knew, you knew within a few weeks, like, oh, this is last place, and it's horrible because you never ever want that. You never want, especially when last season 1 to 8 was so competitive, and then Exeter and Newcastle just could not. And the same for Exeter, right? Like, they're not my favourite team in the league, but you never want to see teams struggling so badly that, like, you can see how it's affecting them on the field, like when they're trying to play and it's not going their way, and they're just getting angry at each other and they just look disappointed. And I remember watching one performance that I'm pretty sure it was Newcastle, and I can't think of who it was against, where it was like so the one time I can remember seeing like every member of a team just not wanting to be there, because they just obviously, like, the mental fatigue as well of not winning for so long. So it was nice to see them get some wins at the end of last season, and hopefully they can carry that into this season, because there were times where you're sort of watching Exeter and Newcastle and they just look dumbfounded, like they really did not know what to do to get themselves out of that rut they'd found them in. And that's a horrible place to be, particularly like a team like Exeter that still had. And Newcastle has a talented squad, but you also think about some of the players that were playing for Exeter. They'd been internationals, they'd been like stalwarts in Exeter's team, and they just genuinely didn't know what they could do to change their situation. That must have been really horrible for like everyone involved. And like I said, even worse for Newcastle, because at least Exeter were getting some wins here and there, but Newcastle went 2 seasons before they got one. And I can't even imagine how that must have felt to be out on a pitch and go like, there's literally nothing we can do to change this, like, for whatever reason, like not a single thing is going our way. So yeah, I mean, look, people have their own opinions about Red Bull and Red Bull getting involved, and I'm honestly ambivalent either way. But if it helps them be more competitive and means we have a competitive league for all 10 teams, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, they're just lucky, I suppose, that there was no relegation. Because obviously, when we would capitulate, we were just awful that season. We got relegated. They have had that safety cap that they're not going down. So even with all the money issues and players leaving, they haven't had that worry.
I think it contributed to some of their issues as well. It's almost like there's a part in your head where, when like mentally it isn't going your way, psychologically you're like, this is not working. But also knowing that you're not getting relegated, I wonder how difficult it is to try and make things happen when you sort of know there's no, I say quote unquote consequences, because being last is still a consequence, I would argue. But knowing that you aren't going down, I wonder how much that kind of affects you mentally, of like, yeah, it's not working, we don't know what to do, we don't even need to try though, because we're still going to be in the league next year and maybe something's different next year. So I wonder if actually we think of no relegation being a good thing for them, and obviously it is because they get to stay in the Prem, but I also wonder how much that affected them on a day-to-day basis, like how hard it is to continue to push yourself for maybe not many gains when you know that you aren't really going to lose a place in the league.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's a factor. But I also would say if there had been relegation, they wouldn't exist.
Possibly, yeah.
No, 100%. I think
we'd probably have a 9 or 8 team league.
Yeah, I think it's still very much very like easily a net positive that they were able to continue, and they've been able that they could stay in the league, and that they've been able to. But I wonder if that made it so hard for them to get results for so long, because
no, definitely. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, if you're 10th and you're like, we can really push, but we're probably still going to be 10th, and we know we can't be relegated. There's got to be a part of you that's like, I don't see the point. Sometimes, like it's got such a hard kind of mental space to be in.
and it all comes down to funding to some extent. And they were floated by a single person who just couldn't really afford it to be at that level anymore. And he was putting in the money he was willing to put in. Maybe if there was relegation and a bit more threat, it might have drawn in a bit more from them to keep them really save them, because he wasn't forced to save them through the relegation. But at the end of the day, as Red Bull, in my view, is phenomenal for the sport. Like, they're going to add a lot of eyes on the sport. They're bringing in the right age group of demographics into the sport, and it's good that they have a lot of fun doing it as well. They're going to help promote the image that's really good, really fun, really entertaining, up in the north west, and I think northeast, sorry. And so therefore, I just think it's tremendous. I mean, it's going to be annoying when they're beating us because they've got all these superstars. But I'm pretty sure we'll keep on top of it.
Well, yeah, you have to assume that that's how it. Like, we have seen other teams do this before, right? Where they've just brought loads of people in and it hasn't worked. Like, you could get a team of the 15 best people in the world, put them together. Doesn't mean it's going to be an excellent team. Like, so yeah, it'll be super interesting to see what I like next season. Because, like you said, you just make this assumption that like every player clicks with every player. But we know that doesn't happen. Like, we've all seen that doesn't necessarily happen. So
Saints have done it plenty of times, haven't they? So
you've got to grow from within, which you've got to grow from within, which I think is what Diamonds is going to try and do anyway.
Yeah,
and they're making the right noises, so we will see.
I mean, you look at the especially for us, like, I feel like they've got and they've made a lot about it in the press, right? About like the close relationship between them, like coming up through the ranks together, like Finn coming in and just being best buds with Tommy Freeman. Like, you saw that throughout all of their international playing together. Everyone likes to joke that none of them like Henry, but I'm pretty sure they actually do. And they kind of have fun with him around, and like all the different players. And there seems to be, there's certain groups that obviously hang out with others more than they do with others, but it seems to be good relationships, and everyone always seems to be having fun. And also I think it's really important that like the coaches are having fun. Like, that must just be the funnest time around Sam Vesti all the time. It just feels like it's like the funnest atmosphere constantly. So
no, we are definitely in a good space, and I'm hoping we see a good side sent that way to Saracens. We've probably talked enough, so let's not go into team selection, because we can say they'll probably go completely left field anyway. But I imagine it's going to be as strong as we can go based on the last couple of games. But anyway, so do you think we'll win? We'll just go win. Predict? We won't go. Do you want to go score, or should we just go win or loss?
Just do a random. Just
do win or loss. Yeah. I'm never ever going to pick Saracens, so win. Obviously, we're going to win. Clearly.
Yeah.
I honestly think I've got no idea about, like, it's enough of effort for me to pay attention to what's happening with Saints. I am not paying attention to what happens with Sarries, so I've got zero clue what space they're in.
Yeah, I have no idea who's picking who's. I was just going to go 28-30 to Saints. I know we're not doing scores, but there we go. That could be totally wrong, because it could be a both academy.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to go 20-24, because that scoreline's worked beautifully for us in the past.
20-24. All right, I'll go 23-26. What was yours again, Si?
28-30.
Yeah, that was it. So well done. Someone was listening.
28-30. Yeah, cool. We'll go with that. Well, there you go. We're starting this year's predictions league as we go. But thanks everyone much for listening. It's been interesting. We managed to fill a good amount of time, bearing in mind that none of us could actually watch the game.
See the game, yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll see how we go next week. We'll be back to discuss the Saracens game and look ahead to Exeter. But as always, I've been Charles. Jess has been Jess. Simon's been Simon. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Goodbye.